Hi, my name is Erik Svensen, and I'm joining you here with the Power Query Magic show together with Win. My favorite Power Query feature is the M language itself, actually.
Welcome, Erik. Thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me. It's fun to talk to other Power Query fans.
Yes, we're few and far between, but the numbers are growing rapidly.
Yeah.
People are discovering.
Yeah, and it's really amazing to see the growth.
Yeah. It's still one of those unheard of wonders. You know, I'm still asking at training courses who's heard of Power Query, and it's still, 15%, 20% still, even now.
It reminds me of the.
We'll get there.
It reminds me of the good old days where I held courses in Excel and asked whether people had heard of pivot tables many years ago.
Okay.
And that was actually the same. So.
Okay, look, we've got to get into your LinkedIn profile. So I had a little look at that, and you've got the summary level under your name in LinkedIn. Okay, so Catman Solution Founder, Power BI Expert, Microsoft MVP, Speaker, Community Leader, Power Query Enthusiast. Always good to have Power Query on there. Maker of Power Apps. We'll come back to that one. Okay.
Yeah.
And then at the end, wine shop owner and art collector.
Yeah.
Okay, this is good, right? So we've got to discuss that bit, but before we
like
do,
the
right?
picture in the picture in the background.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh, okay. So you're in the wine shop now as we're interviewing.
I am in the wine shop now. Yes.
Okay, so let's say you're having your favorite glass of wine. What's that at the moment? Do you have a favorite?
It's a red wine from Sicily, based on the Nerello Mascadese grape, and it's actually made by a Danish woman who makes wine down there.
What's the name of that?
It's called Thalia.
Okay, there we go.
Thalia. So a little commercial here for Anne-Louise Mikkelsen. She makes really great wine.
So let's say you're drinking a glass of Thalia, and you're having a chat with somebody over it, and they sort of say, so what do you do, Erik? How's that sort of conversation go?
Yeah, normally I would say I am a Power BI expert, and then people will sort of, what is that? But what I actually, what Catman Solution primarily does is that the suppliers for grocery shops have access to how their products are selling in each of the individual stores, and that of course gives a lot of data. And because retailers share this data with their suppliers, they do it in different file formats, in different ways, and we sort of provide a service to handle that data and use Power BI as a visualization tool in order for my clients, i.e. the suppliers, to make better decisions faster. Which store are performing the best, and what are they doing compared to the stores that are not performing that well? How do they optimize their promotions, etc.? And is there a weather correlation, or are there other correlations between the efficiency of a grocery store that the supplier can sort of work on and improve their business on?
Yeah, so is there any sort of action they can then take on that?
Yeah.
What's the main drivers? Interesting. And the name Catman? What's the origin of that for Catman Solutions?
It comes from category management, which was a way of working that was created about 18-20 years ago. How should you actually optimize your categories in a grocery store. So how should you look at the milk category, the bread category, etc. And there are principles on how to work with that. And back then I sort of stumbled into an Excel project where they had created some Excel templates that they asked me, because I was an Excel expert back then, how could we improve these templates? And I said, I can do that.
Okay.
And that has sort of evolved to Catman Solution today. Back then they had very few data accessible, but now they have POS data, as point of sale data at store level, at product level, at a daily level, and that's of course generates a lot of data that needs to be handled.
Just got the volume and the sort of speed of that data coming through is just needs a bit of a different technique, different technologies to handle it.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So interesting. And then the wine shop owner, how did that come about?
Well, in the building that I live in, and there was a store that was where the lease was finalized. So I want to do something in that store, and I asked some of my friends that I usually went to wine tasting with, shouldn't we open a wine store? And 6 months later we had a wine store or wine shop.
Excellent.
Well, so it's another passion that has grown. So
you sort of got some work and passion overlap then in sort of multiple areas.
Yeah,
it's a nice way to be.
That has sort of been my road through my career. I started out as an accountant and was that for about 15 years. But I switched from accounting to IT because I thought it was so much more fun to play with Excel. So I started, I quit my very well-paid job, and I was almost ready to take the exam as a certified accountant, CPA.
Okay.
I said, no, I want to teach Excel, and that's more fun. So I reduced my salary at about 50% or something like that in order to follow my passion.
The part of the accounting work that I loved was the playing on Excel. That was the bit that sort of, I was passionate about. And then I, ended up searching for jobs that were Excel heavy, jobs that had a bit of accounting or finance or reporting elements to them, because that's the bit I enjoyed. And I've always pursued those sorts of jobs then. It's much more fun.
And I taught my colleagues in how to utilize Excel, etc. So that was the thing that I enjoyed the most. So why not work with that?
Yeah, it's a nice experience when you sort of when somebody sort of eyes light up a little bit when you sort of show them something new or save them some time and all those sorts of things. There's a nice little feeling you get from it. So the more of that you can do, it's good.
Absolutely.
And I think I read that you were an auditor at one point.
Yeah.
So
well, that's because I called it an accountant, but it wasn't audited. So I work with a lot of clients. Yeah.
So I did my 3 years of audit practice.
Yeah.
Just long enough to sort of qualify as a chartered accountant, and then I was actually visiting my cousin in Australia, and when I qualified, and I immediately pretty much resigned when I went back to the UK. So that's enough for me. So for those people who don't know what an auditor does, just out of aside, completely digressing from the main topic. So how would you summarize what an auditor does?
Yeah, mostly, well, here in Denmark, or people in general think we do all sorts of checks, right? So we sort of verify everything that in account is okay, but that's absolutely not the case. We are sort of checking It's based on samples, right? Check whether the figures are correct, and check whether the processes in the company sort of enable some sort of control that makes it more reliable that the figures in the company is okay when you're presenting that to external parties.
It's not 100% accuracy check. It's it's the general sort of high level, not misleading type thing. But were you? I didn't really get to use spreadsheets much during my audit days. A little bit, but not a lot. Were you using Excel a fair bit or not during that time?
Yeah, because we also created some budgeting models for clients and also helped them with reporting. So, and because I was sort of the first one in order to adapt spreadsheets in the company, I sort of got all the jobs or the tasks because I know how to turn on the computer, and that burned me a lot, right? And the first IBM PC that entered the office, I spent all my lunches sitting there trying to find out how it actually worked. I thought I was pretty good at Excel when I sort of was finalized or changed my career, but teaching other people how to use Excel, that really raised my experience, right? Yes. Because of all the good questions, and something that was obvious for me wasn't obvious for other Excel users. So teaching people to use it, that sort of raises your experience and expertise a lot, right?
You've got a one. You might sort of, like you say, you get questions and feedback, and that improves you. You've also got a sort of know what you're talking. You don't want to be caught out too much, so you do a little bit extra research because you know you're going to get asked about things. But also, I just think it's that sort of that experience of using stuff in real life and then realizing that there's lots you don't know, and also trying to explain it to people in a way that's simpler, and then you often find a simpler way of doing it because of that, and you just go, so it's a real. No, I totally agree with you. It does make things a lot better for you. Our office I worked with Pricewaterhouse when I qualified, and our office in Cardiff in the UK was the last Pricewaterhouse. I think I'm right in saying this. The last Pricewaterhouse to be given laptop computers. So that was sort of my. Everyone else, we were on paper, we were on pen and paper for my first 6 months. With the old green and red pen, ticking and bashing. And then then the laptops came along, and we had, I think it was not Lotus Notes, something built on Lotus Notes and some other stuff.
Symphony.
But I learned, something like that. And but I cut my teeth on Lotus 123. So were you playing about before Lotus 123?
Yeah, I actually played around with something called SuperCalc. That was.
You're a SuperCalc guy. Okay, that's original gangster SuperCalc. Okay.
SuperCalc versus Lotus 123.
And then it sort of migrated on to. When did Excel start to take off? I'm not even sure really.
No, it's so many years ago that
a long time ago.
I just checked that my first certification was actually in Excel 5.0. And that's 24 years ago.
Wow! Yeah. Does it? It amazes me. I'm sure it amazes you that I'm still learning stuff in Excel all the time, and I've been doing it for so long, and there's still people showing me stuff. I'm just and I actually don't use Excel that much anymore. All of my work actually is in Power BI and the Power Apps primarily. So it's very rare that I get to use some of the new exciting features that Excel actually has, the new string functions and
XLOOKUP.
Yeah. Yeah,
etc.
and the lambdas and the like of these things and stuff. And it's just like, I'd love to get into that now. And I'm struggling to keep up with it. And it's, same thing. We're sort of heavily focused on Power BI now. And I just see all this nice Excel stuff going on. I go, just dabble, just go, that could be useful. That's probably not useful for me. And then you just get in there if you need to. I've actually just been working on a Excel project, first time in quite a while this week. And it's good fun. I'm loving getting back in there. I'm using dynamic arrays and all these other things. It's like, this is great.
Yeah.
So, it's nice to get back on the old tools, And then, so where are you based now?
In the center of Copenhagen.
Okay. Yeah. And have you been there a long time?
Yeah. I lived in Copenhagen all my years.
Okay.
Tour de France is starting here, right outside my living door, actually,
Right.
tomorrow. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So it's going to be a bit mad, bit busy down there.
Yeah, and my office is actually right outside the starting line. So if you look at see Tour de France tomorrow, you will be able to see my office.
We'll keep an eye on it. Very good.
I'll get a Power Query sign up.
Learn Power Query, and people go, "What's this?" And you set up the Denmark Power BI user group, did you? Were you one of the founders? Or?
Yeah. Yes, together with Just Blingback, who's also a Microsoft MVP here in Denmark. He had a business intelligence professional sort of community, Danish community group. And we were starting to do some sessions in there, and I thought just I think it was in 2016 actually, where I said, shouldn't we create our own Power BI community in order to get focus on Power BI? So we started that, and we're actually before it went to Dynamics communities, we were in one of the first user groups in the world.
Wow, okay. Very cool.
And we were also the Power BI user group of the year back 5 years ago or something like that.
Very fancy.
Yeah.
Nice little. Who awards that? Where does that award come from?
That was Dynamic Communities actually.
Oh, okay. Is that the same as the
back then?
Pug? Was that the same? Was
that
something just a dynamic?
Yeah.
Okay.
Pug.
Yeah. And did that lead to you becoming an MVP? Was that part of the how did that come about?
I think so. Yeah. Starting the user group, and I've done some blogging for quite a few years.
Actually, I'll come back to the blogging later.
Yeah. And and then I was nominated. So I've been an MVP since 2017. And I think we met in person actually, Win.
We did. I think I shared a taxi or something with you at some point at the MVP summit with a bunch of other people who I sort of recognized their faces from various blogs, and I'm just sitting in the back of the car with them going, what's going on? This is weird.
What? Yeah. I miss those summits.
Absolutely. Yeah, hopefully the in-person summits will come back. It's great to catch up with everybody. And let's talk Power Apps as well then. So you're getting into that.
Yeah.
And Power Automate as well.
Yeah. I do that. You sort of have not very much, but only when in the solutions that I sort of construct, where Power Apps need some sort of automation, or send an email, or integrate with Power BI.
So give me a couple of examples then of what Power Apps have been used for.
Well, in our case, we have used Power Apps delivered as a solution for our clients. So when the sales rep visits the store, they used to take pictures of their displays or the facings that they had in the store, and they of course use their phone for that. and then they sent the image via an email, etc. And then the picture sort of went into a network share, and finding the information there was impossible. So I created a solution using Power Apps with the camera, with the integration to selecting products that were on the image, etc. And then we could sort of use the location capabilities in order to identify, you don't actually need to pick the store you're in when you take the picture. We have all the location of the stores, so of course we know which store you have taken in, so you don't need to tell us that. And then they post that to a database, and we can sort of use that information to say, this picture was taken on this day, what happened with the sales before and after? And then we, using that data, can identify, this picture actually illustrates how you can improve your business as well, right?
Very cool.
And the last Power App I've created is sort of a profit calculator, where we use so when the sales reps enters the store and tries to sell the store a promotion, they sort of tell them, okay, we're running a promotion on these products, and then we integrate it with Power BI as well in order to get the historical information. How did these products actually perform? So I use the REST API to execute a DAX query in order to calculate a forecast. Okay, with this price point, you're going to sell this amount of toilet paper or whatever.
Yeah, whatever the product is. Very cool.
Yeah, and then save, and then we have the capture the information, not in Excel sheets or handwritten notes or whatever. And then again, we can, the next time they can follow up and say, okay, we did this, it went like this, should we do it again or should we do something else?
Yeah, very good.
Based on Power Apps, Power BI and Power Automate.
And is that getting stored in the Dataverse then?
Yes.
Okay. So what's your experience with that like so far? Is it sort of a good product? Is it the best place to store Power App stuff nowadays? Is that the recommended approach, or is it still unconvinced?
That's what Microsoft wants us to store. And then as they have made the Azure connectors and the SQL connector as well premium connectors, we sort of okay, we get the point. We should have a look at Dataverse, right? And you get a lot of plumbing in place, right?
Right.
So it's very easy to create the tables. It's very easy to create the relationships. It is something that most people can learn, right? So it's sort of self-service app building with an infrastructure behind that is not stored in Excel sheets, right?
Yeah. And how do you find the sort of navigating the licensing and stuff around that though? That's always the bit that sort of just puts me off of exploring it more. I sort of start to look at it and then I just go, I'm not sure how much this is going to cost me even to play with it. I just
no.
Is it hard? Is it confusing?
You can have it. I think it's very confusing.
Right.
You can get the developer license right,
but not for commercial use though.
No.
Yeah,
but you can play around with it.
Right. Yeah. Fair point. But but then there's no point in me playing about with it if I can't tell a client roughly how much this might cost them, and if I don't understand, I'm just like I sort of struggle with it a bit.
They have lowered the price point, right? For Power Apps, but I think it's a hard sell, right? If they are just starting the journey. So if they're saying, okay, I have 200 sales reps, you're saying they all need a Power Apps as a user license because we want to make more than 2 apps. Yeah, okay, that's 200 times, what is it, $20? So
Yeah.
that's 4,000 a month? Huh?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that's, you really need to show some return on investment on that, right?
Absolutely.
Because they probably have something that works in some way already. But if they want to digitalize their work processes, they should definitely have a look at what you can do with Power Apps and automate. But
Yeah.
the pricing, that's I think it's a hard sell. So
Because when you have, so there's certain features with Power Apps that, and I've not really played about with this properly at all, but there's certain features. If you have a E3 license, Office 365 E3 type license, there's certain connectors and functionality and stuff built in. Is Dataverse
that you
part
have,
of that?
yeah.
Or is Dataverse something
I don't
premium?
know.
Yeah, so I
don't know.
So, but
Yeah.
as soon as you start getting the paid app with the premium connectors, that is definitely Dataverse with all the
Yeah.
because there's now Dataverse for Teams,
Absolutely.
and I started playing about with that with the Power App in Teams. But it's a challenge.
Yeah, and then,
So
yeah.
we mentioned the blog, okay? Your blog. So I searched back. I went back into the one of your first posts was 11 years ago, okay? March 2011, okay? And the topic was, let me just remind myself, was a macro to format numbers in a pivot table. There you go. That was one of your very first blogs.
Yeah.
Then, in August of that year, so we're talking 2011 year, you did a post about Power Pivot, which is pretty early on in the Power Pivot story. So you were starting to dabble with that stuff. And then your next post was about Project Crescent. Well, talk about that.
What's that?
Project Crescent?
That's Power View.
Oh,
as far as I remember.
Yes, that makes
the
sense.
first,
Yes, okay.
The early beginnings of Power BI.
Yeah, so Power Pivot was Project Gemini. Okay, then Power View was Project Crescent. Okay, they love their names. Awesome. And then Data Explorer.
Power Query.
Power Query. Okay. So you were in there doing blogs about these things, sort of, you just liked getting into this and sharing your knowledge. Were you reading other people's blogs at the time as well? Were you getting a bit of inspiration from other people?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
What sort of?
But I also, as soon as the new features arrive, I sort of really love to play with it and see what it is, and sort of unbox the feature and see, okay, how can we utilize this? And some of them survive and others don't.
Yeah, absolutely.
I started my what is now Catman solution on digital dashboards in Outlook. That was was a very old product that didn't survive, as it was a Microsoft product, of course. And that was sort of the early steps of the vision of having Power BI or reporting where you work, right? And that was, we were all in Outlook all the time, so you could create a BI dashboard within Outlook. And I said, that's a good idea. Let's do that. But it never took off.
Well, but they're now sort of, you can embed the dashboards in Teams now. So you got your sort of Teams integration of your BI, which is, an evolution, I guess, of that.
And what about project? What's it called? Sienna. Do you know about that?
Now, Project Sienna. I don't. What's Project Sienna?
That was actually what Power Apps was called before it was Power Apps. So I worked with that as well.
Good. Very good. Okay.
Infopath, the replacement of Infopath. Yeah.
Okay.
So I played around with that as well.
Yeah. So in at the early stages of all these things. Awesome.
Yeah.
So let's talk Power Query then. So you were in at the early stage. You were in the Data Explorer days, starting to play about with this. Just to over the years, then, have you got some sort of examples that you mentioned to people about how much time something's like? Have you got a couple of real life examples that you could reel off about what Power Query's done in terms of efficiency? Or
well, I can, as I've worked a lot with data and of course stumbled upon a CSV file or HTML files that needed sort of to be processed, right? I have written a lot of VBA code in order to handle that.
Yes, feel your pain.
Yes, and and what you can do with Power Query in minutes, that would take hours of work and errors if you had to use VBA for that. That's will save you a lot of hours, and I even if you're transposing some data in Excel as well, the things that you would actually want to do or consolidate multiple ranges in Excel, use Power Query for that. I've created our own budget model in my company where I have it in Excel, but it's then tables for each of the areas that we create a budget on and drill down to account level, and then I use Power Query to summarize all the fields. So I have a Power Pivot model, Power BI model that enables me to drill down to each of the accounts, and I can see where we are doing well or spending too much money.
That's it. That's what it's about, helping make some decisions a bit quicker in an easier, less expensive way. So that's pretty cool.
And it's connected to our ERP system as well. So it's updated once a day. So if I'm interested or have the time, I can look at the updated data, and it's no hands whatsoever, right?
Yeah, just do it once. Take a bit of extra time to do it once. You might be able to do it manually quicker that one time, but then if you're going to do it 5 times, then just take the time to learn a bit of Power Query. And there's normally a solution to your data somehow. It's just a case of how much time are you willing to invest working out the Power Query code and steps.
Yeah.
How many videos can you watch to actually learn what's which is good of people. So you're still writing the blog?
Yeah, I haven't really had the time to write that many blog posts the last year or so, but I do occasionally stumble upon one where I say, I need to write about this. But I've written a lot of Power Query blog posts the last few years, and these are actually it is the most popular blog post that I have on my blog.
Right. Yeah.
As well.
And have you got sort of any important lessons for people starting off with Power Query or even progressing in their Power Query journey? Things you wish you'd known.
Well, people might get first of all, limit the number of steps, right? As soon as you can't see all your steps in in your transformations, then you're definitely on the wrong road, right?
Yeah, there's something going on.
Yeah. So try to think and to shorten the number of steps. There must be something wrong if you need to do all of this. And then actually, spend some time on learning the M language, because when we just use the clicking, you can get a long way with that. But you can really optimize your queries if you spend a few days on getting a grip of the M language. people. I do a session about don't be afraid of the advanced editor.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, and the EMP language, if you sort of take all the advanced stuff you can do as well, but if you just think in tables, lists, functions, etc., and records, if you understand that concept, you are a very long way of actually making your Power Queries more dynamic. And know that when you click the steps, it's sort of like recording a macro in Excel. It writes exactly what you do, but you can sort of parameterize those. You can change the text, the selection. We can't do make it relative, whatever. If you have some sort of knowledge about writing VBA code in Excel, well, if you know that you shouldn't hard copy the cell references, etc., you also think, I probably should do that in Power Query.
Yeah.
How can I actually do it more dynamic?
Yes.
And if you just stay within the basics, then you quickly progress and become more confident in modifying your Power Queries by hand. And you can do stuff in the advanced editor that is not exposed via the interface.
Yeah, I think, it's off-putting with the whole hash double quotes with the spaces, for step names with spaces. That makes it look a bit ugly. And again, I think you're right. There's that transition from clicking buttons and not reading the code at all. And I can't believe the formula bar used to be off. That just blew my mind. That was off by default.
No,
terrible idea. So great that that's back on. Then there's the sort of understanding what the code's doing, and then you're into how do I manipulate that code, or even just do this? And that concept of, for me, I always tell people, look at the code. Is anything that the code's referring to going to change, or might change?
Yeah.
And you really want to avoid referencing that. Take the extra time, future-proof it a bit more, and then you've got to get into the advanced editor as a more advanced stage then, and really start playing about with this stuff.
Yeah.
And are you using Power Query? Because Power Query shows up in a whole bunch of places now. So, because you can run it in Power Automate, I think, as well, and a few other places. Have you used it elsewhere, or just Power BI these days?
Yeah, and Power Query Online in Power Apps for the data flows, and data flows, of course, as well. I've used it once for the SQL connector in Power Automate, where you also have the ability to create a Power Query, but that's mostly for playing, and in Asia Data Factory as well. My small dream is actually that we get the Power Query editor in Paginated reports as well.
Wow, Paginated reports just is too hard.
No.
I've played with it, and we've actually built. One of my colleagues has built a solution for a client, and they sort of delved into it and got really into it. And the warnings on all the training courses are like, just make a visual slightly wider, and everything's out of whack, and you've got to drag. I was just like, oh, this seems so pedantic sometimes, and not user friendly. That whole thing needs a bit of an overhaul, I reckon. So have you been heavily involved in paginated reports in the past?
Yes.
Okay.
We before Power BI, we built our solution using paginated reports.
Right. Okay.
Or reporting services so I've written a lot of MDX. And created a lot of reports in using the report builder.
Right.
Yeah.
But nowadays, you can pull, so the Power Query can pull it into a Power BI data set, and then you build the paginated report off that
on the
sort of data set.
Yeah.
But are you suggesting something else that would be nice in terms of Power Query feeding directly into paginated report?
if you sort of think of paginated reports, that is a designer for, let's make it simple, just a table with data, and then you can modify that and summarize it, etc.
Okay.
Now we are creating a table when we are creating a Power Query.
Yeah.
Most of the time, at least.
Yeah.
So if I were able to connect to all the connectors that we now have, I could extract data in paginated report into a table, and then I could build a report on top of that.
Right. Oh, does that sort of, the new sort of formatted table feature in Power BI service?
I really don't like that.
Okay. Why don't you like
Suddenly
it?
we got export. Because we got the export to Excel button.
Yeah, and you shouldn't be doing one-off manual exports.
No.
Yeah.
No. I know there's a lot of demand for it, that people want their data out again of the data model, but that's
Is it a step backwards?
It's a nice feature, etc. But I think I would have preferred other stuffs.
Yeah, I think somebody mentioned this on a comment from something I posted the other day, and they said they just want it to be really easy to build like DAX query tables into Excel.
Yeah,
and I was like, yeah, that's good, because then that's live in, and it'd be nice to just build your structured table as you want. Some sort of Excel builder type tool to do that would be quite nice too. So
and there are some limitation in the formatted table, right? You don't have the parameters. Yes, you can then download the RDL file, etc. But most people will stop there because they open the paginated report builder and say, "Ooh, my."
It's not very welcoming.
We need the paginated report bear back in the game.
Come back and rescue us. Okay, so I don't know if you've seen any previous episodes, but I play this little game called Just a Minute, where we have to talk for a minute, between us, and whoever's speaking at the end is the winner at the end of the minute. I'm going to give us a topic to talk about, and then you get to pick whether you go first or second. The topic is going to be lists in Power Query. Okay, I'm going to get my little stopwatch ready here.
Ooh.
So if you pause or you say too many times, I'm going to say buzz, and I'm going to start talking. And if you hear me pause or get stuck, and also the hardest part of this is you're not allowed to repeat any words other than lists or Power Query. That's the hardest part of this whole thing. So I should be getting better at this game. I should start winning it because I'm practicing, but I keep losing. So I'm on a losing streak at the moment. Okay, so Power Query lists, and you can talk about anything to do with lists, an example of what you've done with a list, what options there are with a list, anything. If you go totally off a tangent, shopping lists, I might buzz in and stop you. Okay, but lists in Power Query. Okay?
Wine lists.
Wine lists. No, not allowed unless you're Power Querying a wine list and then you're converting it. Anyway, so do you want to start or do you want me to start?
I can start.
Oh, you can start.
I want to start.
Okay, you're starting, so I'll start the stopwatch. Go.
So, what you should think about in Power Query is that a table in Power Query is actually a collection of lists. So each column is actually a list. And what I normally use list for is for instance to select a particular column, filter it down to distinct values, and import that as perhaps a lookup table or a dimension table.
Oh,
but
buzz!
I also use
you
lists.
said buzz. You said table twice. Lookup table, dimension table. Right? Yes. 33 seconds. You did well. 33 seconds. Okay. Go. So I think of lists as like a column in a table, and a useful example I just did in my Power Query challenge coming up is to grab the headings of a table and turn that into a list using table.names. And then you can filter out certain items from that list and then use that. Oh, 1 minute. 1 minute. I think you were very generous there, because I even heard myself say table a couple of times there.
Yeah.
So I think you were being kind to me there, Erik. So thank you for giving me the honour of...
you need a win.
I did need a win. I did. So thank you. I appreciate that. So lists. Talk about lists a second. Just not under pressure. How good are lists? How important are lists when you learn Power Query?
It's very important to understand the concept, and you can create lists by using the curly brackets and 1 ... to 10, and then you have a list of values from 1 to 10. Because a lot of the functions that you have in your table dot whatever, etc., sort of has an argument where you need to specify something using a list.
Yeah.
So for instance, when you select columns, it's actually a list of columns names that you provide to the select.columns or remove columns.
Yes.
So when you know that it's a list, and you know how to create a list, not by selecting data or by, if you can construct it, then you sort of can combine these two and say, okay, if I construct a list over here, I can utilize that anywhere in my queries.
Yes.
And another important topic that I also need to remember to say is that the order in your steps doesn't matter.
Which can be quite mind-blowing.
Which can be, yeah. What?
Yeah.
I usually do it when if I'm importing an Excel file or Excel sheet, etc., and need to reference a particular cell in that. I sort of store that in a variable or in a step, and I can put that anywhere in my code. It might screw up my step names on the right, but if you put it at the top, you won't be into trouble.
Yeah.
And then I can use that variable anywhere in my let statement, right?
Yes.
And so lists is an important topic, and then you have all the list functions where you can select the first, the last, the contains any, whatever, in order to filter your list depending on what you need to do.
Absolutely.
And as you mentioned in your last example, yeah, if you use some of the table functions, for instance the table.column names, you'll get a list returned.
Yeah.
So that way we can combine and utilize the list. And in some cases we also have a list of transformations we can do. So we can actually put transformations within a list, and we can have multiple lists within a list, and then your mind sort of, oh, I can have lists within a list of lists, and yeah.
But I think it's quite a nice sort of learning path to some extent, that you can click a button and then you can look at the formula and you go, right, well, that's got curly brackets in it. That's a list.
Yeah.
And I can create a
That's
list by just referring to a column or something like that, or some functions like you say table.column names. And then you can start to, put all this stuff, put the pieces together, almost like breaking it apart and put it back together. And then the realization that like you say, the orders of the steps don't actually matter. And if some steps you add aren't even used, then it doesn't even get used. It's just ignored. There's more to it than clicking the buttons, and you can really get into it, and you start to, I think your learning accelerates quite a bit when you start to play about with lists more. So
yeah, and it took me a couple of years, I think, actually, to understand this concept of lazy, what's it called?
Lazy
evaluation, right?
Yeah.
I thought, what lazy?
What does that mean?
I'm pretty lazy, but what does it actually mean?
Does that mean it doesn't do do anything? It's just sort of like, so
Yeah.
it just evaluates the steps it has to
Yeah,
get the end result.
there are some,
So,
people, when I show them that you can put your steps order in any order you would like, people start up, oh, what? What just happened there?
Referring to a later step is very unintuitive. I'm going to grab this thing that's 7 steps down and use that 6 steps earlier. And I'm not going to cause a circular reference.
Yeah.
Excel users just blows their mind. It's just like,
no.
how does that work? How is that possible?
That's not possible in VBA.
No. This, and VBA, I think I took about 4 years to get good at VBA, like really confident writing it from scratch. Or not even writing it from scratch, but just doing stuff really well in VBA. And I think it took about 6 months in Power Query to get really confident I was doing stuff really well. And then I'm still, and I was only at 10% of learning then. And now, you just start to get into the advanced editor and all those sorts of things, and you just accelerate away again. But it's just amazing. Learning curve so much sharper than trying to learn VBA. And there's so many products you can use Power Query in now. Whereas VBA is just, it's going to be stuck in Excel and a few other Microsoft desktop versions. And you never, it's going to be around for another 20 years probably, but just tapering out.
Yeah, I tweeted about the 1st of April that we will get the VBA editor in Power BI desktop as well.
Nice.
But
good one.
Apparently that had something to do with the date.
Yeah, nice. The date is important for that announcement. And are there any sort of Power Query enhancements or at powerbimideas.com type things that you wish were in the product? Any improvements? Anything in data flows that you'd like to see in desktop, or anything else that's missing?
In the Power Query online experience, where you can see whether your query folding breaks or it might break, those icons, etc., are really, really nice.
They are.
And I would love to see them in the desktop.
That'll be good.
And
that's diagram view. What's your thoughts on diagram view? You can be honest. It's just me and you here. Just me and you here, Erik.
Yeah. I've been raised with the VBA editor without IntelliSense, right? And I've started out with writing Power Query in hand. So it doesn't give that much to me because I don't go into the advanced editor as a default, right? In no way. But I think it's a good feature for not that skilled data transformation users to have it like that. So that's really cool. And I believe that you can also turn the see all the code in Power Query Online as well, so you can actually edit that in the formula bar much easier than you can now. But that I like the diagram view, but I don't think that I will benefit that much from it.
No.
Apart from when we're taking over other people's Power Queries in order to help them, it will sort of give us a better understanding of how it's constructed.
You've taken the words out of my mouth there, because I was about to say I did find it super. I'm the same as you. Don't think I'm going to be building anything using the diagram view, but I inherited somebody else's series of data flows and 25 queries all interacting, and that diagram view was beautiful. That really helped me. So
absolutely.
No, I totally agree on that. And the script view so the multi-form, so you can see basically the advanced editor in the formula bar, and the fact that you can make the formula bar bigger. Oh, I want the formula bar. I want the formula bar for the advanced steps, for the applied steps view to be bigger as well. So that if you've written your code in the advanced editor in sort of some indented format, 5 lines is not enough. It's not enough. So
Or they should think about not having spaces in the steps name by default.
Yeah, just
so we avoid all the hashtags and quotings in the advanced.
Yeah, so the steps just go like camel case type thing or something like that. Do you think? Yeah. Or underscores or whatever.
Or being able to rename the steps not by right-clicking, choose rename, but simply double-clicking the step name in order to edit the step name.
Well, does double-clicking do anything right now? I think it.
If you have the gear icon and it will open the dialog for add custom column.
No, double-clicking would be nicer, wouldn't it? I'm with you on that. I'm still, I know my finger from Excel days, my finger is poised on F2 on my keyboard all the time anyway. So to edit steps, I just press F2. So just natural, hooks towards that. But yeah, no, double clicking would be a nicer experience. Yeah, I agree. And of course, fixing IntelliSense, but let's not moan about that.
It's very confusing that we don't have to use the dot, right?
Yeah, don't use the dot.
That will help you, but why?
So one of the requirements for coming on the show as well is that you leave 2 articles or videos or blogs or whatever they are. So your most popular and your favorite.
Yeah.
So what have you got for us?
Well, the most popular, that depends on, well, as you mentioned, I've been on the blogging for many years. So my most read post so far is how to filter a table based on another table column / list.
Okay.
So if you have a list of years or list of categories or whatever, and I have a big table that I want to filter based on that, how can you do that?
Yeah, I'm with you. Yeah. That's a good one.
Yeah. So
very useful.
I think I'm close to 100,000 views actually on that post.
That's pretty good, hey?
So Microsoft should hopefully listen and make that easier for people, because apparently it's a function people sort of, or a routine that people use a lot.
Good. Yeah, good call.
So.
And your favorite?
And my favorite is actually when I import, when I work with CSV files, we get it from different countries in some cases. So the decimal separator or thousand separator will be different from file to file. And I don't like the combine function in Power Query, where you just pick the folder of list and then click combine, where it generates the code for you. I'm not a fan of that. I would like to be in control. So I typically create my own. I always create my own function in order to control what is happening. And then I've got this idea on how to handle how to test a file, whether it uses a comma as a separator or a dot as a separator. In Denmark we use comma as a decimal separator, whereas in UK or US they use a dot, right? So how to solve that using Power Query? So I sort of taste on the columns to identify, and then if it contains mostly commas or mostly dots, I say, okay, then it's from the UK or from Denmark.
Right. Very good.
All in one Power Query function.
Nice. So I'll make sure there's links to those 2 articles in the show notes, etc.
Yeah.
And I tend to ask people as well about their worst presentation moment. Have you got one of those? Anything that's gone horribly wrong for you?
Yeah.
What's that one?
Yeah, it was actually one of my first public presentations.
Oh, right.
I used to be sort of the Excel guy in Denmark, or one of them. So when Microsoft had an Excel issue, or problem, they sort of pointed at me, saying he should probably good at that. And but then Visual Studio tools for Office came along many years ago. And Microsoft asked me, could you do a presentation on this new feature that we have introduced, i.e. create COM add-ins for Excel and Word, etc. Erik, and of course I can do that. And I was a VBA guy, right? I had almost never opened Visual Studio before this. So let's just say that my skill level was not very high. So I had to introduce this new tool for about 50, 60 people, where some of them were Visual Studio guys, right?
Yeah.
That was not very fun. It quickly became obvious that I didn't know much about it, or enough.
You still kept on presenting.
Absolutely, I love the interaction.
You just do stuff you know about these days.
Yeah. That's what I tell people.
We all, we could all present to ourselves 1 year later and just mock ourselves and go, "What are you talking?" We all learn at different places, and everybody knows different things to different people. So don't let that ever put anybody off. Just get started, start talking. And before we wrap things up, also ask whether you've ever had a brush with fame. Any famous people you bumped into or know, or?
I don't know any. Well, of course, all the Power BI guys that I've met, they are probably they are famous in the community. Yes. But if we go beyond that,
I'm looking outside the Power BI.
I spent some time in the, or as you can see in the background, I'm an art lover. Yeah. So I also am my company is sponsoring a museum here in Copenhagen, where they have a lot of contemporary art, and they sort of fund an exhibition every year for a new upcoming artist. And part of that has then that I've had the chance to meet these people and see how they work and get inspired from a completely different side than Power BI. How are their minds, right? And that's so I've met some of the biggest names within the Danish contemporary art scene. The girl in the background here is Mie Mørkeberg. That's Danish and very hard to pronounce for a non-Dane. And so that's a big passion. And the Crown Prince of Denmark is actually the protector of the museum as well. So I've been in the same room as him.
Mixing with royalty.
So yeah,
excellent. And any others, or that's a pretty good one. That's
I passed Jim Kerr, the lead singer of the Simple Minds, in Paris many years ago. So I don't know whether that counts, whether I've met him, but
that's good.
At least
it's a brush with fame. That's all you need. You walk past, you saw. That's good enough. Awesome. And then sort of finally, I'm going to strand you on a desert island. You're allowed one object to take with you. It must begin with a letter M. What are you going to take?
Well, my PC. Is that okay, or is it a P? So I can write some more blog posts.
No, I'm not allowed. Nah.
No, then it must be the. What about the M language documentation? Reading the 250 pages of actually the M language, how you can construct a variable. Many years ago, I went.
Keep you busy.
When I considered changing from being an auditor to IT. and working with Excel full time. I actually, on my holiday, I took a 500 plus pages book with me on my holiday and read a whole book about Excel VBA. So
okay.
My sister thought I was a bit strange, but yeah.
Yeah, you were only 8 at the time.
No.
Okay, the Alex Powers strongly recommends that, reading that. He reckons it sort of, just transformed his understanding of that M code documentation. He said it's a dry read, but it's I
have
allow that.
Yeah. Thank you.
No worries. Yeah. All right, awesome to chat, Erik. Thanks very much for coming on the show. Thoroughly enjoyed it.
Thank you for having me. Yeah, absolutely.
I hope we can catch up in the wine shop one day. I'll have to call by.
Yeah, I guess you're not coming to the Power BI Next Step conference here in September in Denmark. But
no, I'm not. So,
no.
But I am sort of going to a few different conferences and trying to manage which ones and when and stuff. It's and pay the bills at the same time. It's a balance of that. But no, hopefully we do bump into each other soon.
Absolutely.
Thanks again, Erik. Catch you later on.
Yeah. Bye, Win.